We have been working since 2015, and we started by organizing summit in preparations of the COP conferences in order to gather non-state members. What we mean by that, we are talking about local authorities, companies, organizations, civil society, more generally speaking, women's group, youth, etc. And the idea is to facilitate the networking of all the actors to promote the climate plan. We have also developed other activities. We do have a website where you would find a lot of information about the various actions, practical information about climate action, both in English and French. We also have an observatory, which is analyzing the territorial action, climate action, and we list what has been done, what has been implemented in various areas, and explain how this works, how this is part of the national policies, how it has been financed. We have various commissions at the observatory. And finally, what I was saying earlier on, the annual summit, and we gather hundreds of communities. We organize topic discussions. We have various non-state actors working together. Because of the COVID situation this year, we were not in a position to organize a summit, which is why we decided to organize virtual workshops once a week for each of our topics. So each week we have been gathering our various stakeholders and our various commissions from the various sectors. Today we are talking about mobility and transport. We have gathered the coalition for this. This is the first virtual workshop on this topic this year. The coalition has been very active despite this crisis, and much has happened, especially in the Ivory Coast, which is what we're going to be talking about today. As I was saying, the purpose is to show and explain what has been done in Ivory Coast and see whether or not this model might be replicable in other countries in order to develop a more sustainable mobility, especially in Africa. I'm going to show you very quickly, explain quickly what has been done in Ivory Coast, and then I will ask a few questions to people who have been involved in this project. So I will continue with that, first introducing our speakers, and then I will introduce them as they come along. And as I take the floor, we want to have something quite interactive and be able to dialogue, hence a larger number of speakers than usual. What has been done in Ivory Coast? After COP21, and following the momentum of action, the PPMC, which is a Paris Process Mobility and Climate on mobility and climate, which gathers various stakeholders in the transport and mobility area, they established a roadmap for decarbonation by 2050, as you can see on this screen. The PPMC gave us this tool for an interesting framework. What we chose to do in partnership with the PPMC, with the Michelin Corporate Foundation, we said, okay, we do have a framework. Now, could we replicate this in other countries, especially in Africa? Which is what we decided to do. There was a first roadmap in Morocco for sustainable mobility. And in 2018, we organized a climate change summit in Abidjan. We gathered a lot of stakeholders from Ivory Coast, and we ran a workshop to introduce this method. All the people from Ivory Coast were very interested, and they decided to meet again or to touch base after the summit to really try to elaborate a roadmap for Ivory Coast, which is what we did. We managed to do so and to continue working for another 2 years in Ivory Coast with the help of people who are here with us today, and who will explain to us what has been done, what has been achieved. It's been a beautiful achievement which helped us fulfill this method with various actors, NGOs, associations, startups, local authorities, etc., all working together in connection with the national authorities. And we moved forward pretty well in these last 2 years, and now we're here to present the results of this action and show the various axes for action and see how it could be replicated. Without further ado, I will now introduce our speakers, and they will tell us more about this. Sylvestre Kouame, who is a director of the Observatory for African Mobility in Abidjan. Aristide Gahié, he is the director of the Planification for Studies and Projects at the AMUGA, which is the Authority for Urban Mobility in the larger Abidjan, also in Ivory Coast. Patrick Oliva, he's a co-founder of the PPMC, Paris Process on Mobility and Climate. They will tell us about the Ivory Coast case, and then we have other speakers from other countries. Fortunate Biira, she's a supervisor of the Maintenance and Control Center for Road Safety in Kampala, in Uganda. Mr. Dominique Breuil, who is working for the CODATU. Amath Ndeye, who is in charge of the CETUD, which is Executive Council for the Urban Transport, and Ndeye who is coordinating and also a member of the committee in Sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, this is for our speakers. Okay, I'm going to ask the question first to Patrick and both Sylvestre. I would like you to tell us a bit more about the relevancy of this tool, the roadmap, PPMC. What was it? What were the main lines, and how useful was it in the project in Ivory Coast? Maybe give us an overview. Thank you. Yes, I can start. Thank you, Romain, for giving me the floor and giving me the opportunity to talk about this. In the document which we issued, which we called Macro Roadmap, we wanted to show that we did not want to enter all the details, but we wanted to give a framework which would be sufficiently general enough that could be applicable anywhere in order to structure various actions to reach a decarbonization, in order to transform transport. Two things which are quite original. First of all, we were able to clearly identify 8 chapters, 8 actions, quite different, but complementing each other, and all vital to say that a country could actually position itself and be successful in this approach, providing it took in consideration the 8th dimension, the urban dimension, new energies, improvement of various transport modes, energy transition, etc., logistics, another chapter on the way to reduce useless transport, another chapter on the specificity of the rural world, another chapter on the necessity of investment and adaptation, and another chapter on the new technologies, the new tools in order to reach these goals. This has been the first dimension. From there on, other countries could develop this in other countries, which is the case for Ivory Coast. Starting from these 8 distinct chapters, Ivory Coast wanted to also underline 2 other aspects, road safety, which is another important aspect, And another element, I forgot the name now, but from 8 they went to 10 in order to adapt to their own reality. The second aspect to underline, of course, is if all of these chapters were tackled or approached together, there's a synergy to be operated between these various chapters. The goal is not to reach in each case the main objectives at the same time and within a short time. So there is a schedule in the long term. Not any country can have as many investments to cover all these aspects, but there needs to be a synergy. Some aspects are more urgent than others. Others can wait. And in this respect, we had two schedules, one that could apply to countries already advanced in terms of infrastructure, technology, so that they could get started with more of an ambitious program, and another schedule, maybe a bit slower, for countries which still needed to develop further their infrastructures or develop an energetic network or develop other policies, etc. So we structured in various chapters and sectors in order to give some directions and also a synergy on 8 chapters, and then trying to be realistic at the same time. If hydrogen could be an interesting solution for the future, it cannot be the only priority for now, because for air transport, of course, it's not something that can be done. There's still a lot of work to be done to bring this level, the level at an interesting price to make it competitive. So we wanted to, first of all, take into account the industrial, political, and administrative reality, and take into account the maturity of the various societies to show that this could be something to be done in the long term and to make it possible while remaining structured and very focused on a target of decarbonization for the more rapid countries, around 240, 250, for other countries which needed more time by 2060, 2070, saying that each country could assess their own situation, and we will be able to focus and choose the appropriate practice. Now, of course, I want to hand over to Sylvestre, who will be talking about the specific implementation or application to the Ivory Coast case. Thank you very much, Patrick. I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you. I think this project was very useful for the Ivory Coast case. As I said earlier, when you do not have a national policy for mobility and transport, the roadmap gave us this opportunity to plan in the long term by 2050 to talk about transport and mobility in the Ivory Coast through a participative approach, focusing on a number of sectors. Patrick mentioned it. The roadmap started with 8 main axes, but in Ivory Coast, because we had to take this on board with our own specificities, we added 2 more axes: education of the users, of the to change their mentality, change their behavior, and also the road safety aspect. We have a high level of accidents on our roads, and we need to educate people. We needed to take this into account. So this roadmap was a main tool to help us implement these strategic documents and guide our public action to help with the decision making, to help the partners to get an overview of our situation in Ivory Coast for our own populations and for all the stakeholders in terms of mobility by 2050. That gave us a new direction to be able to take into consideration all these themes. And from the start, we were able to take all these topics into consideration. So the experience, our experience was positive. We had a systemic approach, and we were able to focus on very important aspects. If I may add, Romain, something. Now, to be successful in this approach, the first example we had, you reminded us, it was Morocco. Then we worked on Ivory Coast. We issued this roadmap, macro roadmap document from a discussion which we had with a non-state world. We were at the COP21 and COP22 as a non-state representative, but we had in mind to collaborate very strictly and tightly with our other partners, cities, industries, citizens, all the non-state members, and of course, and the role of the government on top of that. So the discussion from the outcome of this discussion led to a sharing, a communion between non-state and state members. The choice of the various chapters and the schedule were there to help both state and non-state stake players to find in this document the basis, the foundations of an action that would be adapted to their own mission. It was important to target this great vision and collaboration between state and non-state members. Okay, I wanted to ask maybe Aristide Gahié, who is the director of the study and project planification at the AMUGA. He was carrying this project, talking about the connection about non-state members and the national government at the Ministry of Transport, which was right from the start part of this project, partner in this project. Aristide, if you can hear us, can you tell us a bit more about the kind of stakeholders you were able to mobilize and how did this happen, practically speaking, in Ivory Coast? Hello, Romain. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to take part in this workshop and share about our Ivory Coast experience.
Aristide, je crois Côte d'Ivoire, nous avons pu réunir autour de la table plusieurs acteurs.
We were able to gather several non-state members around the table. Sorry, I can't hear him. The sound is very bad. There's a lot of delay. Connection is too slow, I'm afraid. Try again. I think it's better.
D'accord. Ok, donc j'ai dit que vous m'entendez?
Oui, là ça va.
D'accord. Donc nous avons eu la participation des acteurs étatiques, le ministère des Transports qui a pris la direction.
Ministry of Transport, the General Director of the Ministry of Transport and of Road Circulation. We also had a strong participation from the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development. So these two state stakeholders work together with non-state stakeholders like the SOTRA, which is a transport society company in Abidjan, which is a historical transport company and one of the main ones in sub-Saharan Africa. We also had participation of other stakeholders, university members, professors, students who also came alongside to help. We also had other organizations from the civil society. My Dream for Africa also helped us develop this project with their own initiatives on bicycles. So all of these organizations, which already had their own initiatives regarding mobility, were connected, and we were able to all sit together around a table during some workshop sessions. All in all, we had about 3 workshops during which we presented the various axes, and everyone added their viewpoint on each topic, and there were 10 commissions for each of the axes. We developed some commissions for each sector, and each commission came back with some resolutions or proposals. We were trying to have and with the help of the PPMC, which gave us this roadmap. Today, we continue to identify and quantify the various advantages taken from the roadmap by 2050, this is what I wanted to add at this point. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's a good transition for me. I was going to ask about the model and the model making. We know that in order for this work to be taken into consideration in national policies, there needs to be a modeling of the projection. And at the end of the day, our purpose is to influence national policies with our field work, and ideally to include this project to include this in the Ivory Coast contribution in the Paris Agreement. So I want to know if Aristide and Sylvestre could tell us about the process of modeling took place, and if you think that's something that could be taken into account for the NDC. Okay, thank you very much. After what Aristide said, we also need to add and talk about the prefect and the prefecture authority and the local authorities such as the mayors, the regional prefect, departmental prefects. We're all very involved in this process, in the process of the roadmap. Having said this, with the NDC, Nationally Determined Contributions, we want to really take this opportunity to thank all the official authorities of the Ivory Coast. Since the beginning of this process, we were able to get the support of the Ministry of Transport. But the day before yesterday, after the workshop that we had to present the roadmap, there was a strong interest from the various other ministries, especially the Ministry of Sustainable Development and Environment. They are trying to evaluate the MTC presented for the next COP, and this ministry was there with the main leaders, and they presented their process for NDC, and I believe there is a project for collaboration between these various stakeholders and Ministry of Environment, so that together they could really benefit from the work that climate change has been doing. We have moved forward, we have made progress, And as part of this work, we will try to establish the various goals and to try to quantify them through a business as usual model and look at the various gains that the Ivory Coast could get if they were to implement the proposal from the roadmap. So this is an important process which we have started through the help of the Ministry of Environment, and we are expecting the results of this work to be able to take this into account in the assessment, final assessment. Okay, great. I would like to also add something. Not only the Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development took part and will benefit from the project, but also the Authority of Urban Mobility, which as part of its performance contract, there has been an assessment for Ivory Coast, generally speaking, and we have retained Abidjan and Boaké as two main examples. Therefore, the authority in Abidjan would use this, and this will be signed with the authority, the national government. I'm sorry, I'm not getting every word here. It's cutting.
Okay. Merci Aristide. C'est un peu laborieux sur la.
It's been a bit difficult to hear and understand. Okay, what we get. What we understand, there's been a work going on for 2 years at Cocody, Boaké, Abidjan. Thank you for all these photos that you can see there on your screen, showing all the various activities at a local level. There was a restitution, I think a few days ago. I think, as you know, there are elections coming up in Ivory Coast. We wanted to have a restitution before the election, and there will be another formal presentation of all that has been done, in addition to the results of the work of the coalition at the beginning of next year with the teams, so that this work can continue to have an influence in the national policies. And we will follow this very closely, because this is a very good example and an example that we have at heart. Now, I think we've covered already pretty much half of our time, so let's move on now.
Ailleurs. D'ailleurs, on pourra revenir, Sylvestre, Patrick et Aristide, vers vous pour que vous nous en disiez plus sur les ingrédients de la réplicabilité, peut-être, selon vous. On va lancer un petit sondage déjà, savoir, en fait, ce sondage, c'est pour que les participants nous donnent des idées, leur avis et des idées de contacts et d'organismes et d'endroits, de pays où on pourrait répliquer cela. Donc, vous pouvez aller sur cette adresse menti.com avec le code qui est indiqué à l'écran et vous pouvez envoyer des réponses et puis on reviendra dessus à la fin. Et puis, toujours, évidemment, vous pouvez nous contacter sur association@climate-change.org si jamais vous avez des idées qui vous viennent après cet atelier. Donc, en réaction à ce travail ivoirien qui vient de vous être présenté et dont toutes les infos complètes sont évidemment sur notre site, je voudrais maintenant discuter avec Fortunate Biira, qui est Supervisor Traffic Signals Maintenance and Control Center à Kampala, at the Capital City Authority. Et du coup, Fortunate, est-ce que tu nous entends?
Lost.
Merci. Du coup, I'm going to switch to English maybe so we can have a better conversation.
Ok, je vais passer au français maintenant, à l'anglais. Quelles sont vos dernières nouvelles en termes de mobilité urbaine à Kampala, dans votre ville donc? Comme j'ai mentionné,
Kampala is part of the Covenant of Mayors for Sub-Saharan Africa, which is an initiative funded by an initiative which is funded by the European Union. Did this support of the Covenant of Mayors in terms of climate planning, did it have any impact for you in your sector of transport in Kampala? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost communication there, so I had to borrow someone's Zoom meet access. Now, I actually did not hear your question because of that, but I can present what we've done in Kampala, if that's okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So in Kampala, under the Covenant of Mayors Network, we are, as introduced, we are part of the cities that are part of the Covenant of Mayors Network for Kampala. And the themes that Kampala has focused on are air quality monitoring, detailed neighborhood planning, and protection of green assets, including public participation. So for air quality monitoring, we have partnered with Makerere University under a project called Aircore, where we are setting up sites in Kampala to pick air quality data in various areas. We've, of course, borrowed our borders, two-wheelers, to help us collect data over a wider coverage. And what's interesting is that the devices used under the Aircore project are locally made using materials available here. So it's a good initiative for us to participate in. Under detailed neighborhood planning, we have been able to bring different disciplines together, but most importantly, urban planners alongside transport planners to ensure that we plan the areas, the local areas, in such a manner as to minimize, to encourage sustainable modes of transport. Of course, we are working with other cities in Uganda to encourage, to bring to their attention, to draw to their attention the need to embark on climate actions so that we have a greater net impact. Also, Kampala is part of, and we are actually the lead city of Africa Smart Towns Network. There is quite a number of cities in Africa that are under this initiative that is funded by AFD under their portfolio for urban development. And in here, Kampala is focusing on urban mobility. Initially, we had thought that we would look at public transport as a core area, but there's a lot of reforms going on in public transport. So then we moved our focus to incident management, because right now there's a lot of delay caused by incidents on the roads. There is no way of monitoring. The response times are poor. So we are looking to develop a platform and applications where we can get feedback from citizens, from the police, and then also we use this platform to communicate with removals companies so that we are able to reduce on the response times on the network, on the transport network, such that we have less delays and therefore have less pollution in these areas. Again, that is to do with incident management. In terms of sustainable transport modes, Kampala has prioritized growing the non-motorized transport network. There is a deliberate effort to grow the lane kilometers for walkways. Of course, for cycleways, an attempt has been made, but a lot of development has come up and it's becoming difficult to get the required right of way. But wherever it's possible, this is being provided. Where it's not possible, shared spaces are provided, such that we encourage sustainable modes of transport. But also we have a signature project. We have just completed what we are calling our pilot non-motorized transport corridor. It's a street of about 2 kilometers. It has, we have sections of total car, some sections are completely car free. And of course, because there's a lot of businesses, we allowed some access in other sections. But even now, before we complete, because we are in the final stages of completing the infrastructure project, putting in place the infrastructure. Even now, in the final stages, the street has been taken over. There's been a shift. There is no more vehicles. The place is full of pedestrians and cyclists, and it clearly shows us there is actually a need and there will be demand for these changes in the city in the near future.
Okay.
In terms of, yeah?
And so I can see that there are many initiatives being implemented by Kampala.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask you the connection with the national level, and actually how is Uganda's national transport master plan going, or if it has been updated in the past years, and if this national plan takes into account the local practices and how Kampala is advanced, or how is it going? Do you know at the national level?
At the national level, we have a national master plan, but which actually also came and further zoomed into the greater Kampala metropolitan area and focused on the urban setting of Kampala. And we participated in the formulation of the master plan. So it integrates what the city authorities' plans are in terms of sustainable transport. And so we are in tandem with what the master plan says. And yes, that's at the national level in terms of the master plan, but we also have policies, because as a city, our policies in the transport sector are in fact approved, are sanctioned by the ministry, the central government. So our policies regarding sustainable transport have been adopted by the central government. Of course, we advocate for these changes, for these policies, and we are making headway in this area. That's why we have regulations that are in the final stages of just before approval for heavy goods vehicles restrictions. We already have a policy for non-motorized transport, again for the urban setting. And in fact, it is so key that even the national roads now must adopt the provisions provided for under.
Okay, and do you have any comment on the example we presented, the work we did in Côte d'Ivoire? Would this be an added value in Uganda, or do you think there is could have any interest in implementing such a roadmap, gathering local actors from Uganda, from Kampala to Kampala municipality, to startups and maybe researchers, and a more broad approach?
Yes. Kampala would certainly benefit from such direction, because it's important to, first of all, to have the players, all the players. I actually heard that the environmental bodies were involved in Côte d'Ivoire, and we actually were not doing that in Kampala. So it would be good to actually have to learn from an experienced city and be able to implement such, because clearly, much as we're making progress, there are certainly things that we are not doing.
Okay.
So it would, yes, we would certainly benefit from it.
That's okay. That's interesting. And I think that there is even a colleague of Sylvestre from the Observatory of African Mobilities who is based in Kampala. So we can keep in touch about this.
Yes,
Now that as the time is running, thank you, Fortunate, for your messages and your report. I would like to maybe shift to another country, and especially Senegal, because the next speakers are more either based in Senegal or experts of the country. First, I would like to have the comments of Dominique Breuil, who works for CODATU. CODATU is an organization, a French organization, but which works a lot in developing countries and has been closely involved in Senegal and Dakar especially. Pardon, je vais passer en français peut-être. Du coup,
moving back to French. So now, Mr. Dominique Breuil, what has been the type of work you have been doing in Dakar with the CETUD, and can you give us a few comments on the roadmap? Unfortunately, we're running a little bit out of time, and then I will ask to one of our Senegalese colleagues to comment. Thank you, Dominique. Thank you for giving me the floor. Hello, everyone. I hope you can see me on the video. Just to answer your question, your first question, whether the CODATU and in conjunction with the CETUD in Senegal, what we have done several options, especially technical assistance on various topics when needed. I can see that our correspondent in Senegal is also on this call, on this conference, someone who is employed working for the CETUD in Dakar. We also run different actions in Senegal. Another action with training, regarding training, to study the various opportunities to see how we can improve the structure in the training to mobility and to trying to transport of people and merchandise in Senegal, which links to the second question, because in the roadmap, we also have a question which Ivory Coast added to the original roadmap. I think this is the 9th point regarding the education of users. And I think it's very important to talk about education and the training in a broad sense of all the users, transport users and travelers, especially in the new mobilities, to train both bus drivers, maintenance workers, people working in the international transport. There is an important aspect of global training and education that needs to be included in the roadmap for all of the countries, especially for the African countries. This is something which can be replicated. Many points can be replicated which you find in this on this roadmap. I think several points will need to be tackled differently. Now, coming back to Senegal, when we talk about wearing face masks, of course, covering the 8 points, we don't have time now, but we need to get into more details to see where Senegal is standing. I think some of these points have already been covered by the CETUD, especially. I think this has already moved forward. So I think we should take it from there to continue. It's good to hear that there are already things happening. The roadmap, the idea behind is to actually bring together and compare various works and coordinate them. So if we do have the opportunity to do a similar work in Senegal, for example, it would be very interesting to get in touch with the CODATU and the CETUD, so we wouldn't have to do it all over again. So I make a note of this. That's really helpful. Thank you. Now we have Amath Ndiaye from the CETUD in Senegal. Could you hear us? Can you hear us first? Yes, perfect. Great, thank you. Thanks for joining this call. I just wanted to ask you, now knowing that Dakar is doing a lot in terms of urban mobility, this territory, I think, includes about 25% of all of Senegal, is that right? And represents only 0.3% of the territory of the whole country. So there are a lot of needs. I think you have started various actions. How did this project develop? How are things going in this particular context? Where are you at? Thank you. Yes, thank you for inviting us to this workshop. It's an important one. It's important regarding what we're doing in urban planning and mobility, urban mobility planning. Now, to answer your question, I will start from the project which you mentioned, the two projects which are projects for mass transport to make mobility easier in Dakar and solve a number of problems due to the overpopulation and circulation, road circulation, traffic. Now, the mass transport projects are these two projects. Now, regarding the state of progress, it's the BRT and the TER projects. Regarding the BRT, which is a rapid bus transport, because of this COVID-19 crisis, of course, we've had some problems. So we've had to stop the project on several occasions. But overall, in Senegal, we are making progress. We have picked our activities again. Since the COVID-19 is decreasing, and therefore we are able to continue our activities. Now, regarding the mass transport project, what we could say, what could be added, what would be the added value to this project through the various technologies?
Pas de problème.
Sorry, there was someone in there. Okay. Now, through these various projects, I think there are some challenges and some added value, like reducing the time spent in transport, the amount of energy also that will be used for this future mode of transport. For the BRT, for the TR, we'll be using electric technology. So we will be gaining in terms of GHG, and which is of course an important aspect for the sustainability of our mobility projects. Okay, thank you. Yes, I think the CETUD had organized in 2018 a forum regarding mobility policies in Senegalese cities. Is it something which brought some outcomes? Did you come up with some interesting results following this forum? And maybe you can tell us also, just as Dominique Breuil was saying earlier on, could you tell us if maybe in Senegal, what was done in Ivory Coast with climate change? Do you think this would be relevant for the Senegalese context? Is it something that the CETUD would be interested in? Would Senegal be interested in a Senegalese roadmap in that respect? Now, regarding the forum that was organized in 2018, maybe let's talk about the recommendations following the forum. Among the recommendations, there was a launch of planification process of urban mobility in the Dakar region and in also other regions. We recommended to pursue the effort and to strengthen the role of the CETUD. Now, regarding the reformation of the project, I recalled these recommendations to say that the CETUD is part of a new implementation of these recommendations. A few surveys and studies have been launched since then, such as the BRT project and the updating of the urban planning and the mobility projects to include the various challenges regarding sustainable mobility. So all of these aspects have been included. So the CETUD is really in a long-term continuity, in a long-term dynamics to continue to pursue these recommendations so that in the long term, we could reach the goal of urban mobility. Thank you. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of time, which we're going to try to keep our time. I would also like to give the opportunity, give the mic to our next speaker in Dakar, from the city of Dakar, to talk to us and to maybe share her reactions to what has been shared and to know whether this exercise, this initiative, if applied to Senegal, if you think that could be complementary to what Dakar initiated in 2012. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yes, fine. Thank you, Romain. Thank you also to the participant. As you said, it's very important for the city of Dakar, which has committed since 2017. In 2012, it was the region which had committed to this project, but in 2017, Dakar got involved through the energetic plan and carried out some studies to really identify and quantify the emissions in terms of transport. The study which we carried out in Dakar with the help of the Ministry of Environment and various other services from the state. As you know, the city of Dakar is committed, is involved, engaged in the Convention of Mayors, and also got the support of the C40 initiative. So we were able to assess the emissions of GHG with 40%, with a responsibility of 40%, because this is something that the city of Dakar, as part of the board of directors, is working in this dimension in order to contribute to this work with the CDN. So it's important now that we say that the proposal, I was very interested to hear and to follow this. I've been interested to hear, yes, we would like to follow the roadmap from Abidjan. We were in Morocco. We had already followed this roadmap to get started, and things have changed now for us a little bit. So we think it's important now for cities like Dakar to work along these lines, and it's quite possible to duplicate this same roadmap, to replicate this same roadmap, because Dakar, just like Abidjan, is a committed city. We are engaged in climate change with the support of state services. Therefore, we would really, and we could really replicate this roadmap and add the necessary information and documents. Just as was said by the representative of the CODATU, many things are already done here in Dakar, in Senegal, but we could see what else is more specific, what else is more specific for us that is not specific in Ivory Coast. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think Sylvestre was nodding, who worked so hard on this for the last 2 years, but it was worth it. Just to say also that our observatory, Climate Change Observatory, you can find the links there. We do have a study case about Dakar. You can click on the link and you would see the results there. My colleague will also display the results of the survey, the consultation that we did on Menti. Now the question was, are you interested in replicating this method in your country? Now the second question was, which African country or organization would be interested in replicating this method? So these were the two questions that we asked in this little survey. We will send you the result, of course, because we're running late, and along with all the presentations, you can get all the informations. So we want to thank all of our speakers and those who gave us some ideas of other organizations which we did not necessarily know before. Maybe we could just give the floor to a few people. Now, among the speakers, I don't know if you had any short comments. No problem. Just a quick comment. Of course, I was very interested to hear all the various testimonies and Ivory Coast and the interest shown by Dakar and Kampala. Now, regarding the macro roadmap, there is another interesting example, which is not African. We also have the case of India. India is not Africa, but there are a few interesting topics with a large population and expanding country, and also a desire for sustainable mobility. Therefore, the work that was carried out by FICCI, the Industrial Commercial Chamber of India, was very interesting. And this was done in close collaboration with the federal Indian government. And this is what will structure the Indian proposal of NDC for the COP26 when India is going to take the commitment. So this document will be used by the government. This is really interesting to see how this non-state initiative actually met the aspirations and the desires of the country and led to this proposal. I just wanted to share this as an example for our colleagues in Africa, just to take a look at this document, which you will find on the PPMC, the Indian roadmap. In 10 seconds, Romain, just to say that regarding the Ivory Coast experience, I just want to thank Climate Change, the PPMC, Patrick Claire, and everyone, and the Michelin Corporate Foundation. If Ivory Coast is the second country now in Africa and the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to have this roadmap, it's really thanks to the commitment of all of these stakeholders. It has been it's been an experience that we started in 2017. Already, Ivory Coast has made this document its own and has adapted it. I think there will be a meeting soon to talk about future collaborations between the AMUGA and the various structures. I just wanted once again to thank Climate Change, to thank Patrick Claire and everyone for their support and their commitment, which has helped us have this roadmap. Thank you. You are welcome. And thank you for making something beautiful out of it. Thank you, Sylvestre, for your commitment. Any other reactions, either from our speakers or our participants? If you can just maybe raise your hand if you want to raise a question at the bottom right of your screen. And if we are all okay now. We have someone. Habib Agosu, I don't know if you want to say something. Habib Agosu, yes, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for this initiative. I'm from Benin. For some times now, anything to do with climate, I had never personally come across any such action. So I just wanted to ask you if it would be possible to have this roadmap in Benin, please. Yes, of course, we could talk about this. You need to have a favorable environment with different ingredients, of course, but sure, feel free to write to us at association@climatechange.org, and then we can follow through. I cannot promise anything, but sure, let's keep in touch and let's explore the various possibilities. Thank you. Any other comments or any other hands raised? Let me just take a quick look.
Ok. Bon, en tout cas, tout cela ne s'arrête pas ici, hein, évidemment.
Of course, we will continue. Take it from there. Please feel free to contact us.
On a un petit problème. Bon,
okay.
Donc
sorry about this. So please feel free to write to us, and we will follow up everything that we get from you. Thank you to all of our speakers who took time to be here with us. Thank you to all the participants who joined this call. You will receive everything, the minutes of this call, the presentations. Just to sum up I have to say that I'm very happy that we were able to present this beautiful experience, a beautiful example of Ivory Coast, and it's very likely that we will be able to influence the NDC and the governmental policies. I have noticed that a few countries have shown an interest in Senegal, of course, in Kampala, in Uganda. There are many stakeholders who are ready to work with us. So I believe and I hope we will be able to replicate this experience in Senegal, and we will come back to you when we get more elements. Again, thank you for all your sharings. Our next workshop will be next week, next Thursday, with the Global Alliance on Building and Construction. We'll be talking about long-term construction, sustainable construction. Now, as mobility stakeholders, I would invite you to visit our website. You will find there best practices, mainly in Africa. So feel free, if you have any other things to add, you can post it on our website, and then we will translate it and we'll publish it through our website. Therefore, you can have a page with your project and various links to your website, some photos. So feel free to send us all of your documents. Now I have to stop, and I will thank you all and wish you a nice day, and hope to see you again either in Senegal, in Uganda, or wherever possible. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Au revoir à tous.